Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Before we jump right into the episode, I have a special announcement. We are doing another round of the Connect Method Parenting Study. That's so fun. I wasn't sure we'd do a third round, but we are. We're still collecting data and evidence to show the impact Connect Method Parenting has on real families with real situations. And we'd like to bump the number up that have gone through the study a little bit more. So we're doing it again, and we're starting July 15th, which is just around the corner. If you haven't heard about the Connect Method Parenting Study, let me just tell you a little bit about it. If you're interested, you will need to apply and pay a deposit that is refundable after the 8 weeks. And all of that is explained on the website, why we do the deposit, why you get it back, how you get it back, all of the things. But let me explain for just a second what you get when you come through the study. So we're tracking people going through the first 8 weeks of League, which is called the Parenting Pivot. After the pivot, you transition into something called CMP Mastery. You can ask me more about that later, but here's the important part. While you're in the pivot, which is a phenomenal boot camp, and the reason is because the emphasis is on implementation. There are daily, weekly, and monthly assignments that you will do and will be recorded in our custom app. The assignments are essential in turning Connect Method parenting principles into connected relationships. There are also, almost every day of the week, there's office hours available that you can join to either listen or get coached. In fact, if you listen to the episode I had with Amelia, who came into our February group and is still a part of the CMP world, she talks about how office hours are her favorite thing because on office hours, we take real problems, we apply real principles, and you get to see how it actually works in real life. And whether you're the one asking the questions or you're listening in, you are learning so much and your brain is going to see the possibilities of parent from a place of connection, not correction. So that's powerful. You get dozens of feedback comments from me and my team through the app on the assignments that you do throughout the course. And this feedback, it's going to help you know that you are truly walking on the Connect Method parenting path. So you're going to have all of the hands-on help you need to build those relationships you want with your kids and get them to want to listen to you. And that's really an important distinction. Want to listen to you. So I'm so excited for this next group of this EMP study. I'm not sure we'll do it again. We'll see what they say. If I need more people, we'll do it again. But regardless, now is the time. I mean, we're in summer and your kids are home more, and we want to make the most use of this time. We want to double down on the relationships, on the understanding, on the connective responses we're having when there's off-track behavior. Now's the time to learn it. So if you're interested, and you want to jump in on July 15th, you can go over to cmp.works/study. I'll link it in the show notes too, and find out about what's happening so that you can apply, get your refundable deposit in, and join us starting July 15th. And if you're afraid because you're going to be traveling, you can do this on the go. It takes a couple of, I'd say plan on 3 hours a week of investing in the learning and the implementation and assignments. And then the rest of it's just you're doing it with your kids already. You're already parenting, so you're just going to be using these principles inside the container of being a parent already, so there's no extra time. If you have questions, shoot us an email at hello@connectmethodparenting.com. And I'm going to just share a couple of comments that we've gotten from people, just a really short sampling right after this so you can hear what parents have said about it. And then we'll just transition right into the episode. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
I just can never express how great this has been and how thankful I am. It's been everything. It's been so good.
Like, are we only 2 weeks in? It's like night and day already. There's just been this total shift.
I feel like our hearts are like so connected. Thank you. I'm so grateful.
I really, really see the change.
So fun. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So if you're ready to create a change in your parenting, you're ready to go from corrective to connective parenting, I would love for you to come participate in this study. All right, on with the show. Polarity is not something to resist. So having these opposites, not something to resist, it's something to embrace. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about a few different things that have come up recently. One of the things I've been finding lately for my group and my one-on-one clients is that we sometimes get to the conclusion that problems are forever. And for some reason, a lot of us fixate on the idea that things are never going to change. We start with a sense of being incomplete or not being good enough. And we look forward to this day when we'll finally settle and we'll finally be enough. And with parenting, where we'll finally figure it all out, our kids will finally behave or act the way we want them to behave or act. And so we're looking forward to this day where we'll finally feel whole. And we think that something feels off because we don't have the right, whatever, fill in the blank, the right situation, the right reaction, the right behavior from our kids, all of the above. So we go out into the world, we go out every day and we try to find the solution. We try to figure out how to solve our problems. And we're pretty sure that there's going to be this day where all the chores are going to get done and all the kids are going to behave a certain way and all the good will outweigh all the bad all of the time. And this is where we start to get confused, where we start to think that the goal is that our lives should be more positive, more happy, rainbow sunshines than not, than the negative. And when I tell people this, when I tell moms this, and there's some resistance, I tell them that their life's going to be full of both some negativity and some sadness, of the bad, negative emotions. A lot of times we are really resistant to that. And we want to negotiate it. We want to argue and we want to say, no, that can't be true. And I get this because I've been there, done that. No, life's not 50-50. And it doesn't mean I spend equal 50-50 time. It's just that we're having a really beautiful mix of experiences, and our kids are helping us have those mix of experiences. So we spend a lot of time when we're not accepting this. I can say from personal experience and from people I've worked with, where we're not accepting it, where we spend a lot of time trying to make it different, where we try to pretend that our life is different than it is by doing things that we think will make us more happy, or by not really being willing to look at the things that are making us feel a little less peaceful, or we don't really want to look at the reality of our humanness. So life being filled with negative emotions half of the time, it's by design. It's the way our brains operate. It's the way the world presents. It's needed. And if everything was good, there would be no contrast. We wouldn't know how good it was because we wouldn't understand the difference. We wouldn't even know what good or joy or happiness felt like because we wouldn't know what sad and depressed and angry and upset felt like. So we wouldn't understand what was happening. We wouldn't understand the difference between the two. So when we go through life and we have different experiences, we are given different opportunities. And with our kids specifically, we understand how awesome it feels to have the kids get along and to have the chores done, because we have had the contrast when those things haven't happened. Kids weren't getting along and the chores weren't done, or the house was messy. And then we really appreciate the house being clean. So this is part of the ebb and flow of life. It's perfect. It's normal. It's the way it's supposed to. For example, before we were married, before we had kids, we had one set of problems, and then we have kids and we have to solve a new set of problems. I remember when we first got married, we didn't have any money. The problems we had were that we didn't have money. And then as we got more established in our career, and then we had a little bit more, and then we had a different set of problems because we had to now manage the money. And the same with the kids. When we didn't have kids, we didn't have kid problems. We had other problems. And then as we got children, we had other set of problems to manage. So it just changes the flavor. The emotions are still mixing between positive and negative. So while we're exhausting ourselves to seek peace from negativity, we miss the lesson that there can be peace in the negativity. We don't even have to judge the negative as negative. We can just stop judging it. We can accept it as something that provides contrast, that creates joy and excitement and exhilaration, all the things that life has to give us. Polarity isn't something to resist, it's something to embrace. And within everything we deem as negative is the positive we so desperately want. So we can use this to our benefit. Does that make sense? Let me say that again. Polarity is not something to resist. So having these opposites, not something to resist, it's something to embrace. It's something to get curious about. It's something to learn how to navigate, So within everything we see as negative is the positive we so desperately want. They're baked into each other. So we can use this to our benefit when we start to realize this. We can use it to plan for obstacles. We can use it to accept all negative emotions we create. We can release ourselves from self-punishment over negative emotions. We can stop resisting half of life. Wouldn't that be amazing? We can stop being afraid of emotional pain. So when we accept it, it's less painful. So resistance and fear of pain, they're completely unnecessary. They make it worse for no good reason. And accepting and embracing pain makes life so much easier to manage. So without problems and without pain, you could say we're not even humans. You could say that we're sociopaths because we are not even feeling those normal ebbs and flows of emotions. So we don't cry or grieve or miss our loved ones. We don't get mad at injustice. We don't even worry about our children. That's what it would be like if we didn't have this gamut of emotions that we get to have in this life. That's what a sociopath is. And that's not what any of us want. So every single problem that we have, we can put into a steer and we can understand it. And we can be like, oh, that makes perfect sense that my nervous system is doing that. It wants to protect me. It doesn't see this as safe. It thinks that something's wrong, but it doesn't have to always lead down that path. It can cause all the emotions. It can cause all the gamut of frustrations, but it doesn't have to mean that something has gone wrong. When we use the steer, we understand the problem and we realize nothing's gone wrong. We just understand it. Oh, this is what's happened. I can get curious about it. I can understand when they don't put their clothes away, why I get so frustrated. I can understand why when I have the messy house or the kids are fighting, I can put that problem into a steer and I can understand the emotions and the thoughts that are happening. I can put it into a steer so that I can understand it and then I can shift it. That is the process. It doesn't mean something's gone wrong when we've had a reaction. There will never be a time where we aren't, I hope that we're not feeling those human emotions. I want to feel all of them. I just want to know what's happening when I feel them and intentionally experience. And if I need to transition out into a different emotion to have that be fueling my action, it's just about understanding what is happening in my body, why it's happening, and intentionally using the steer and the peace process, which is really just another way to take you through using a steer in a really powerful, trauma-informed, nervous system friendly way to understand what's happening so that we don't have to be drawn into the steers, drawn into the problems. We can see them so that we don't have them permanently. So I don't think there's going to be a time where we no longer have to do steers. I do them all of the time, sometimes in my head, sometimes on paper. They're helping us understand the problem of why am I getting triggered when this happened. And I will say that over this weekend, something happened. It really surprised me. We are having some work done with our pipes because last winter they froze. We had to get really creative with water for a few months because they just weren't working. And so we just had some work done and somebody came in, one of the kids' friends pulled onto the grass into our front yard, and they had just replaced our water meter and dug new water pipe, buried the water pipe in our front yard. And I got all panicked and I'm like, oh my gosh, he can't park on the grass. It's going to ruin it. And I just went into this really problematic mindset. Like I was really nervous and worried. And my kids said something like, don't worry about it, Mom, it's fine. And I perceived what they said as attacking me. And I got and I have different reactions for different things. In this case, I kind of shut down and went quiet and I could see what my brain was doing. The stories just started flowing and I just observed it. And it was really fast. It was just all within just 30 seconds. So like they don't care, they're entitled, they think they know better. I got resentful, I got frustrated. All of the emotions flooded in and I could just sense it all. And I was needing to take a little bit of a break to let myself go through it all. So it's not that they aren't going to happen. And I was really aware of it. And I think that's the progress, the distinction from how this would have gone years ago to today is I was really onto myself and I had my own back. I didn't beat myself up for what was happening. I didn't get deceived by it either. I didn't think it was true. I just saw it and it didn't mean I could turn it off instantly. It took a couple of minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes. I walked outside. I was like, okay. And I was just noticing what was happening in my body and I moved through it. And I apologized. I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, that was so interesting. And so I don't think there's ever a time where I can't imagine a time where I don't want to access the power of a steer. But what I do want to do is start thinking in steers. One of the differences for me is I think in steers now. Oh, this is a situation. This is what I was thinking. These are the emotions that are currently in my body right now. Here's what my action my body wants to do. If I let those actions drive me, this is what the result would be. And I'm noticing, interrupting the pattern, not letting myself actually do the actions. Or maybe if I do a few of the actions, I'm like, whoops, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. And trying to interrupt wherever I can. So I'm using the steer to understand the mindset that's happening inside of my brain so that I can begin to instill a new one. And for me, like most of the time, what happened this weekend wouldn't have triggered me. And for some reason, it just did in that moment. I think I was tired. I was stressed. We had been cleaning all weekend, trying to de-junk the house. There were so many things that could help make sense to why I was more triggery about it. I let that story come up, but I didn't make myself wrong for any of it. It was totally fine. I noticed it. I let it run its course. I definitely didn't want it to become something I suppressed and didn't let run through, because I know what that leads to. And it leads to resentment and frustration and agitation throughout the rest of the day. So I wanted to let it run its course. I wanted to understand it. And I wanted to be really curious and compassionate with myself. So steers help us understand, but they don't solve the problems. These problems become solved or more manageable the more we practice interrupting, the more curious we get, the more compassionate we get, and just really understand, oh, this is just my nervous system doing what it does, and then working on it. Never get fixated on arriving to the perfect place where everything's going to be smooth and all the problems are going to be fixed. If we stop getting fixated on the arrival and realize it's all about the journey, and it's a continual up level of how kind and compassionate and calm I can be for my kids, then we can see every step, even the ones that our brains might label as mistakes, as a beautiful thing. It's never done. So I have a few questions I want you to follow up with that thought for you, that I want you to think about and answer for yourself. What is a problem that you want to eliminate forever, and why? What is a problem? We all have them. What's a problem we want to eliminate forever? I want that to be gone. I never want that to happen again. And why? And if we were able to eliminate this problem, what new problem would take its place that I don't have now? So just think about it. If I was able to get rid of that problem, could I imagine that something else would take its place? Because that's typically what happens is we solve something, and then our brains are so used to needing to solve another problem that it's what's the new problem? And it starts looking for something else to get frustrated or irritated about. This happened to me back in the day. Like, I would organize the toy closet and it'd be like, oh, that was the problem. I was so irritated. It wasn't organized. I got it organized. Everything's good. And then all of a sudden, when that problem was resolved, it would fixate on another problem, bedtime, or the kids fighting, or the kids' bedrooms being messy, or them not making their beds. There was always a problem. It was keep solving all these problems. Once I get all these problems solved, everything will be better. So just think about that. I want you to just be on to yourself, and I want you to have your back and be really compassionate that that's how our brains are. And it's fine. Our brains are always going to be wanting to solve problems. That's actually not a problem. It's not a problem that our brains want to solve problems. It's a problem when we get to the place where we are unconscious to this pattern and we think that the solution to our frustration or our anxiety or whatever it is us solving a new problem. Once this is done, then I'm going to be fine. And then we cross that finish line. Once that's done, I'm going to feel better. And it's just always going to be chasing for a new emotion. An example of this is I remember when I was in college and I had just gotten married and we had, no money in the bank. We didn't have any. We weren't given any money. We were working really hard. We were going to school. And I remember thinking, if we can just have $500 in the bank at one given time, I was thinking, once I have that in the bank, then I'm going to feel so much more secure financially. Then I'll know we're going to be okay. But then we got that much in the bank and I was like, now I need $2,000. Now I need $3,000. And it just kept going. And what really is happening is there's no amount of money that can make me feel secure. It comes from inside. So we'll continually be chasing it. I'm sure you know people who have so much financial security, but in their minds, they don't, because they're like, no, I need more to feel, because they're looking externally to provide the security. And we can do the same thing with our parenting problems. Once the kids are doing this, and this, they're cleaning their room, they're not fighting, they're whatever it is, then I'll be able to feel confident and secure and satisfied with my parenting. But what the problem is, we're always going to be chasing a new problem if we're not onto ourselves. And I think we should always be progressing and solving problems, but we don't want to be relying on us solving a problem to feel content. I want you to bring that from within. I want you to learn how to do that, because that is going to create so much more compassion and calmness and satisfaction and confidence in your parenting if you don't need something external to create it for you, because it doesn't work. So let me go through them again. So what is a problem you wish to or you want to eliminate forever and why? Bedtime. That's what your brain's saying. Chores, kids not fighting. Yeah. So that's a problem that your brain's like, I just need to get rid of this forever. And then I want you to think about, if I eliminated this problem, what new problem would take its place? Can you see that? And if you can't think of that, that's confusing. Think to the past. I solved this problem and then this new problem came up as really urgent. So number 3, what do you think about the concept that problems and negative emotions are going to be in our lives forever? We're always going to have things we want to solve. We want to be progressing and getting better at, and we're going to have a balance of positive and negative emotions. And remember, negative emotions are a lot less negative once we stop thinking negatively about them. Once we accept them and we feel them. The experience I had this weekend, I was really frustrated and triggered for about maybe 30 minutes total. And then I was resolved about it and it was super fascinating. And I was able to move through it. So they don't stay attached when we don't feel so worried or resistant to them. Number 4, as a human being that has both positive and negative emotions, what do you think about the idea that the good balance is half and half without any buffering, without any trying to avoid it, without any avoiding it, without trying to get away from it? What do you think about that? What do you think about that balance between those positive and negative emotions? And what do you think about the idea that it's actually healthy and good? And maybe it seems to be a really intentional decision that we are here right now on this planet as humans, and we are supposed to experience both of them. What are your thoughts about that? Does that seem plausible? Does that seem okay? Does that seem terrible? Just get really clear with that for yourself. 5. So if you believe that most of your dreams are on the other side of discomfort, so we have to go through some discomfort, some negative emotions, some messy houses, some kids fighting. If our dreams are on the other side of that, we have to actually go through that. We're supposed to go through that. What is your relationship with discomfort? If you know that the discomfort you feel when the kids are fighting or they're not getting up or they're not listening, whatever that is, what you want to create for yourself and your kids on the other side of that, what is your relationship with discomfort? 6, when we see problems as unwanted or wrong, we end up not growing. What do you think of this? When we're seeing problems as, I don't want this, I wish it would go away, this isn't supposed to happen, they shouldn't be fighting, this shouldn't be messy, they shouldn't be giving me an attitude, the toddler shouldn't be having a meltdown. That is the resistance to the experience, doesn't let us be calm and connected. It doesn't help us grow. So what do you think of that? What's your belief around that? 7, if you looked forward to negative emotions and planned on problems, I want you to think about how your life would be different. If you were looking forward and you're like, I'm totally going to have some negative emotions this week, and I'm going to have some problems that are going to come up that aren't going to go as planned. And if you were just looking forward to it, even getting excited about it, because it was going to show you what you needed to work on, it was going to show you how to grow, it was going to be the catalyst for you to be able to take your emotional intelligence to the next level, how would your life be different? Everything changed for me when I started to believe that. When I started to believe that negative emotions and problems were okay, I was accepting them and they were perfect, everything started to change for me. Now, do I always remember that in the moment? Well, I remember it a lot more now than I did years and years ago, but not always, not every single moment, or sometimes it's for a second I don't when something doesn't go right. But when we practice that belief, it becomes part of our internal narrative. It's like when we learn to drive a car, at first it takes a lot of mental energy, and then pretty soon it's almost 100% drive. When we're driving a car after we've been doing it for years, it's just rote, it's subconscious, it's automatic. We're not consciously thinking about it. We're able to multitask while we're doing it and talk to the kids or turn the radio on or listen to a podcast and navigate traffic, because it has become just part of who we are. And so the more we practice looking through the lenses of life is supposed to give me problems, and there's going to be negative emotions that come up, and this isn't a problem, the more we start to just embrace that, the more we navigate through those things with so much beauty and ease. They're going to happen. Our nervous system might still get tricked into thinking the house being messy is a big, huge problem that we need to resist and we don't feel safe, whatever it is. But more and more, we're going to just either have a lot of those stories disappear, or if they come up and it kind of triggers us, we're going to be able to just move through it with so much more grace and compassion, which truly helps us step into this calm, connected mom that we want to be for our kids. Okay, number 8. Can you think of a problem that you have that ultimately created an equal amount of positive contrast? That makes sense? So you think of a problem that you had that brought up a whole bunch of maybe negative emotions or negative thoughts, but it ultimately created an equal amount of positive emotions, positive thoughts, positive interactions, and maybe positive relationships with your kids. So I want you to write that down. And if you can't think of one, that's okay. I just want you to be aware that it's possible. The situation that happened over the weekend, when I think of it through this lens, okay, this is a problem I had. What did it create for me? It created so much awareness, and I had to practice compassion again for myself, and then humility to go back to the kids and be, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I can't believe I did that, but it happened. I think of all of the byproducts, the strategic byproducts that happen from that, just that little experience creates growth. Okay, number 9, here's an idea. The bigger your dreams, the more problems you will have. It just means because you're trying to grow more, you're going to force yourself to step more outside your comfort zone. You're going to push your old beliefs. You're going to push your old ways of doing things. So the more problems we have, though, the more opportunities we have to grow emotionally, to grow our mental capacity, to grow our beliefs. So we all have some pretty big dreams to grow and to become the fullest version of ourselves, the best parent that we possibly can be, the most compassionate. We want to be able to have all of the things that trigger us right now when the kids are fighting or they're not getting up or bedtime's lasting forever, whatever our special trigger situations are. Our big, huge dreams are to go beyond those things and to get to the place where those are not the problems they are today, and to take ownership for that and to create that for ourselves. So we have these big dreams, but the bigger our dreams, the more we're signing up to confront the stories we have, the emotions we have in ourselves that are keeping us from being that calm, connected mom in those situations where the kids are fighting or things aren't going well. So the bigger our dreams, the more problems we have, but the more problems we have, the more opportunity we have to grow and to become more of who we truly are inside. And I love, love, love that. So this thought, thinking that problems are forever and they're not going to go away and we shouldn't have positive and negative emotions, things should just be pleasant and happy, leads right into this next thought of that I think is linked to it is I'm not good enough. So it's so curious to me how many of us have this thought in general. And as a mom, it shows up so strongly. It's everywhere. There's this guy on YouTube. He's looking at people's behaviors and mannerisms and talking about subconsciously what's going on when we do different things. And I think it's so fascinating. I don't know how accurate or not, and I take it with a grain of salt, but he was talking about a clip from the media where they were showing William and Kate and Henry and Meghan Markle. He was looking at their behavior and he was comparing different ways they were standing, showing up in this public appearance, and comparing this is showing so much confidence. And he was, talking about William and Kate. He was looking at Meghan Markle. Look how she's holding her body like this. And she's definitely feeling nervous. And whether that's true or not, I just think it's so fascinating how often we show up in certain situations, maybe because of things we've said or because of things other people have said or done, and we don't feel good enough. So many of us have this thought in general. And as I was thinking about this clip, doing an analysis of how they were showing up physically and talking about them subconsciously, got me thinking about what are the areas in my life where I'm still not feeling good enough or confident. My kids are getting older and they're dating and maybe they'll get married and I'm going to have to navigate all of that. And how is that changing my perception of myself? And is that thought I'm not good enough creeping up? And it happens all the time in our life. Something changes and oftentimes our brain goes back to I'm not good enough. So it's curious to me how many of us have this thought in general, but it's not as if we apply it to a specific skill set. We've just decided we're not good enough as human beings. A lot of times that's it. I see this all of the time. Other human beings are better. I'm missing something. That was one of my good friends was always, I'm missing something. I'm not good enough. I'm missing something. Here's what I think is one, this is a pretty universal thought that a lot of us have on some level. And as parents, I'm not good enough. It corrodes our ability to have the compassion and confidence to be there for our kids. So I think it's one that we want to catch. And I have a theory and a belief that I think is really true. And I don't think that it's true that any human being is better than another human being, or that it even can be the case that we're not good enough. That all of us, whether we make the best choice in the moment or the worst choice in the moment, that we're doing the best we can. and to see it through that lens of compassion and to give that to our kids too. They are doing the best they can in that isolated moment. I love looking at the world this way. I love looking at myself this way. If we believe they're better or I need to get better to feel more confident, we're always on the lookout to figure out where we can get on the ladder of betterness. For some reason, we seem to put ourselves at the bottom of the ladder most of the time. And the rub is the worse we think of ourselves, the worse we show up. That's why this is so critical for us as moms to really look at. If I'm feeling like I'm not good enough, or I was sharing that experience from yesterday where I got triggered. And if I started to make that mean like I'm bad mom, things are terrible, and I can't believe I got triggered by that, I should know better. I teach this stuff. I've studied the nervous system. I get what's happening. If I use that against myself, then I'm at the bottom of the ladder. I think terribly about myself and I don't show up well. So it just starts this chain reaction. But if I believed in this theory that all human beings are 100% worthy and 100% lovable, and that there's nothing that I can do or that anybody else can do to change that, then I'm able to still maintain a level of belief in myself, to curious and to get compassionate, understand why my kids may have done or said something else, and to move through it with so much more confidence. Don't stop being able to function at my highest level as a mom, which is really, really important for me, not to just retract within myself or to blame my kids for what's going on, but to really love myself, to move through. If I get triggered and I say something I don't mean, or if I'm just like underlyingly cranky about something, to get curious because I believe I'm good enough. I can figure this out and I have confidence in myself. I want you to think about a newborn baby. We wouldn't be looking at a newborn baby and putting them on the scale of betterness. This baby's better than this baby. All these babies are amazing. They're so perfect and beautiful and immaculate and just exactly how they're supposed to be. They're just perfect. We look at babies with that lens. But then as they get older, sometimes we start to have a skewed view about ourselves or our kids. So we don't want to start rating ourselves. We want to practice believing I'm enough, I'm good enough, and I'm learning to be better every day. And yesterday when I messed up, I was doing the best I could and it was totally fine. And it's going to help me be better next time. It's teaching me. It's the catalyst. It's like, what is this experience teaching me? Why is it here? So here is what I believe, that we are humans who create lives based on what we believe. And that's partially what we believe consciously and what we believe subconsciously. So we are parents, we are mothers who create our lives with our children based on what we are believing. And most of us don't know how to navigate our nervous system, how to be kind to ourselves so we don't re-trigger ourselves, and then how to choose consciously thoughts that we want to believe. So most of us are left living at the effects of misguided thinking. At our core, though, we're all the same. We all have all of the tendencies, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the amazingness, the goodness. We can all be rude or inappropriate. We can all be kind and compassionate. So we have this whole gamut, but those things that we think, those emotions that we feel, remember I've said it before, if you've heard me in French, they say I have frustration instead of I am frustrated. There's a separation between emotion and identity. I'm thinking that thought versus this identity with our thoughts and emotions versus understanding they're coming through and they're not who I am. I get to see them, sense them, and move them through. I've been working with so many people that fixate on these beliefs or these thoughts and they become our reality instead of just become something we're experiencing. This thought or this emotion is here to help me learn and grow into something else, to be more kind and compassionate. I'm so frustrated about the messy house. I really want to lean into that because that's not who I am. I have frustration about the house. I have thoughts that things should be differently. Let me understand them so I can get to the place where one, I can have acceptance and peace around the messy house, and I can believe something different about it. And then as a result, create a new reality for myself. Most of the time, the messy house becomes less triggery if we go through that process and we're able to actually get it clean more often because of how we're believing about it or how we're thinking about it. Our steer changes, goes into powerful belief cycle around it. I'm totally capable of cleaning up the house. I want it clean. It's not a problem. It's not clean. And I'm totally capable of cleaning it up. So then we feel empowered. Then the actions that are driven from that feeling of empowerment are so different. So I want you just to remember that you might have rude, frustrated thoughts that you're not loving or emotions that wish I didn't have that. Remember, that's not who you are. That's just part of being human. I think one of the things we're here to learn is how to navigate and hold those emotions and those thoughts without identifying with them, and to use them as our catalyst to grow. So we are humans who are 100% worthy. And there's nothing we can do to change that. You are worthy if you were born rich, and you are equally worthy if you're born poor. You have the same worthiness if your parents were really struggled and maybe did unkind things or maybe even abusive. And you're equally worthy if your parents loved you every second of your life. So there's nothing you can do to become more worthy. You are already at capacity, and nothing you have done or will do will ever make you less. I want you to have that sink in, because from that concept, that self-concept of yourself, you will become the most loving, kind, compassionate, confident version of yourself. We can lose everything we have and be worthy. We can mess up and be worthy. We can yell at our kids and still be worthy. We can repair all of that. We can learn and move through all of that. So if you're still with me and willing to explore this idea that we're all worthy, then a lot of times you're like, why even bother doing good? And that's a great question. And here's what I have to say about that. Because it makes your experience of being alive better. Not because it makes you better or more worthy or you go up a rung on the betterness ladder. It just makes your experience of life so much more pleasant and so much more exciting and enjoyable. So if we spend our time, our life loving people, even people who have wronged us, even people who are, our kids who are being rude or ungrateful, or our friend who we feel like abandoned us, we spend our time learning how to increase our ability to love and have compassion for people, you're going to spend your life in love. So if we are already good enough and nothing we have done has made us less good, how does that affect our lives? How does that affect our parenting? How does that affect our ability to teach and to train and to model when we live from this abundance and confidence and self-love? We are good enough simply because we were born on the planet, being prettier, being smarter, being skinnier, being richer, being more kind or more giving or more, like all of that. It doesn't make us more worthy. These qualities will never make us better than someone else. They just make us have a different experience. They don't make us more worthy. So when we're more kind or more generous or more loving or more compassionate, we're just having a more abundant, loving, kind experience, a different kind of life. And so that is the reality. So I want you to write down all of your thoughts that disagree with the beliefs that I've given you that all humans are good enough. I want you to really flesh that out, because that's going to help you see what's under there and to see if you want to, and it's up to you. I'm throwing this out there. I'm saying, hey, here's what I'm offering. I think this would be a really powerful way to show up as a mom. What do you think? And what do you think if you apply it, this idea that you're good enough to yourself? Do you believe it's an absolute, or that there are degrees of goodness, good enoughness? I want you to think about that. Do I believe there's degrees of good enoughness? They're a little bit more enough, more worthy, better than this person. I want you to think about that in your head and how that affects your parenting, how that affects your life. Now, I said, dig into that. What is the effect of thinking there's maybe degrees of this person's here on the goodness and I'm here on the goodness, or I'm here and they're better, and we're rating each other? And I want you to think how that shows up in the way you parent and how you live and how you view and judge other people. Okay. So if your actions ultimately come from your beliefs and you are taught your whole life to live or believe something, how would acting from that belief make you less worthy or more worthy, depending on what you believed? So maybe what were those core beliefs that might cause you to create judgment? And for me, some of the things I discovered was if my house was clean, I felt like I was better. Not better comparatively to someone else, but I was better than I was the day before. So there's even that comparison towards ourselves. What if we could drop that narrative of betterness and just be, that's just makes me more happy. That's more aligned. I like that better, but it's not about because I wasn't as good yesterday as I was today. So how would you live differently if you genuinely believed you were already good enough and that nothing could improve or change that good enoughness? I don't think that's a word, but you get what I'm saying. So what would change? What would be different if you genuinely already believe there's nothing I can do to make myself better as far as worthy, better, good enough? I just get to decide how I want to live, and I get to love and live and be aligned to what matters to me. I get to make the rules for my kids that make sense to me. I get to have the boundaries and the parameters and all of that kind of stuff because that's what I want, not because that makes me a better parent or a better human. It just feels better to me. So we're taking away the comparison. I want you to take some time to think about the difference between the specific idea that we're not good enough at a skill and the other idea that we're not good enough in general. are different. Not good enough at a skill, I'm not good enough in general. Because I think we want to be making progress throughout our whole life. We want to be improving. We want to be growing, but not because we're not good enough if we don't, but just because I want to learn to do better at this. I want to be a better cook. I want to be more patient. I want to be more organized. I want to learn how to play guitar, whatever it is, just because I want to get good at that skill. The more I believe and am confident in who I am and my worthiness, the more I'm able to make massive progress and grow and progress. And I can't stop but wanting to learn and become my best version. But it's not from this place of graspy energy of trying to prove something. It's just because of pure love and abundance. That's what we want for ourselves. That's what we want for our kids. When I was homeschooling my kids, well, and I'm homeschooling again now, but I didn't want them to learn all of the things to pass a test or to check things off a box or to be better than someone else. I wanted them to learn it because they saw the beauty, learn for goodness sake, learn for the sake of learning, that intrinsic motivation. That's what's inside each one of us. And we get confused because of what's told outside of us. That won't happen. We won't just be good for goodness sake. We won't just learn because for the sake of learning and the joy that brings, but actually is what is so possible for us when we drop the narrative of I need to earn or prove or be better so that I'm more valuable. So when we drop that, so much opens up for us. And then when are you most likely to forget that you or others are good enough no matter what? I want you to think about that. What is the behavior that your kids might do that you start to forget that they're good enough, or that you might do that you forget you're good enough? What are those behaviors where you cross the line and you're like, gosh, I yelled, or my house was so messy, or I'm so disorganized, or my kids are fighting, or the teenagers are just having such a big attitude right now. And we start to forget that we are good enough or that they're good enough. And how could we change that? I'm really, really grateful to be able to talk about this, because I think when we can believe we're good enough, when we can come from a place of my problems aren't forever, this is not going to define me forever, I'm going to figure this out, we can have the confidence to do it, we can keep persevering and go through anything is possible for us. I will talk to you guys next week. See you. Bye, guys. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method parenting coaching program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.